Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. I am really thrilled today to have a man that I consider not just a friend, but a great friend. You guys know him as one of the best college football players of all time, an incredible NFL wide receiver. But I know the guy that was inside the helmet, the human being, the young man who stood for integrity, character, raised by amazing people. And his only vice in his life is that he's a Wolverine. And I'm going to give him grace because he's my favorite Wolverine. And I take so much crap, and he'll tell you it's true. When I say this from Spartan Nation, because I love Michigan State, I'm a Spartan, but he's the best college football player I personally ever put my eyes on and watched. And I saw Kirk Gibson and Lorenzo White. They were all great. But he played a position that somebody had to get him the ball. You know, quarterback touches it all the time. I mean, Tim Tebow, to me, one of the greatest college quarterbacks of all time. People had to get him the ball. But when they did, so many special things happened. But he's a better guy than an NFL and a college football player. My buddy, the one and only, the great one, Braylon Edwards. How you doing, friend?
Yo, AC and AC doesn't stand for head coach, man. Hondo, I really appreciate you for having me on your platform. Thank you. And the best thing I like about what you said is you know the person under the helmet. And I think when we're younger, so much is made about what we do on the basketball court or the football field or the baseball diamond or the ice. Insert professional sport here. I think as you get older, you're really, as an individual, you're way more appreciative of the person that you are, how people view you as a person, things that people say about you, and can people trust on you, rely on you. So I really appreciate that part about it. He's better human being under the helmet. That really meant a lot.
You know, that's why I love you. I know so many great players, but I don't consider them people I want to become friends with. And
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you what I said about you years ago. You were a free agent in the NFL.
Yeah.
And I was asked by a buddy of mine who worked for a team. The first time I've told this story publicly, I've told it to Braylon before, and the guy called me and he goes, "Hey, I know you covered Michigan State, but you also covered the Big Ten. What do you think of Braylon?" This is what I told him. I said, if Braylon drove a trash truck and he wasn't a football player, but he was the same guy he is, that's the guy you want to marry your daughter. And I said, he's aged, he's matured, he comes from an incredible family. I said, he is everything you want in a person. And I was really excited to see that team go on and sign you. And they thanked me because of the man that you were. I love that about you. I just love the way you handle yourself. I love that what's important in your life. You've got your priorities. You know, as kids, how many of us as kids have great success and handle it well? But it's
Yeah.
how after you realize, okay, maybe I can change this or change that. And I just respect you for it. I have so much love. You know, I absolutely love your mother and your father. What a great man. And I just love you and I respect you. I always laugh. People will say to me, Hondo only has people on his podcast that he loves. Well, because you're a great journalist now,
Yeah. I
I
think
don't
too,
want to
man.
be around people I don't like.
Yeah. It's real. Like
And
when you get guys on the show and when you're interacting, guys, you're doing an interview, a podcast, streamcast, a desk, whatever you do, like that energy is real. And if you have guys that you don't like or guys that you disagree with a lot, or guys in which you don't view them as a stand-up person, or you don't view them as an honorable person, or you don't view them as a person that accepts fault for things, I think it comes off natural. Like you can see the energy. Like we've had some guys on the show, and I won't say any names, but you got guys in the chat commenting like, I don't think they like each other, or I don't think this person, or I don't think he respects this guy. So I think a lot of that too for me is the growth over the years. Like, look, I haven't always done the right thing, and I haven't always been, the best. I've made many mistakes, and I'm gonna make many more. But I think as I've gotten into this space, Hondo, I'm 40 now. Like I'm just appreciating making mistakes. I'm apologizing when I'm wrong. I'm looking back at things, and hell, there may be a phone call that you owe somebody for 10 years. I think I'm in that space now to look back, say I'm sorry, and kind of move forward. And if you don't want my apology, I'm also in the space to say, hey, it is what it is. I did my part. So life is fun if you grow. Like if you allow yourself to grow, life is fun. And I still love sports. And that's why we're sitting here having these moments, man.
now I think it was 2004, and Raider fans, hang on, because we're going to get to some Raider stuff in a minute, but I think it was 2004 when you played in East Lansing, when you scored the 3 touchdowns. Wasn't that 2004 or was that 2003?
2004 in Ann Arbor.
Okay. All right. So when you were one of the things that I want to share a story about Braylon Edwards. So it was in Ann Arbor. He scores 3 touchdowns, basically in the same part of the same end zone. And,
True.
you know, big rivalry game. He's going to be the Big Ten Player of the Year. He's going to be an All-American. He's going to be the big, draft pick, all of it. And he comes out of the tunnel after the game, and he's done his interviews, and a million people want his attention. And he bumped into this older lady who's a volunteer. Now, if you've ever been to a game, you all see them. They're volunteers,
Got
and
the
they're there.
yellow
And they
on.
just, yeah. And this is what was so cool. Is he stopped? He put his arm around her. Are you okay? And it was, yeah, I'm the superstar.
Yeah.
Everybody here wants to talk to me. Everybody on TV's talking about me. Everybody on radio's talking about me. But wait a minute, are you okay? And I knew right then, I'm gonna become friends with that guy. That's a guy raised right. And I just appreciate you and I respect you and I think the world of you. All right, I want to get into the Raiders with you.
Okay.
Because they've got Antonio Pierce, who you know is the interim coach.
Great guy.
He's
great guy.
Great guy. What are your views on Antonio first?
So I've known Antonio Pierce even before I got to the Jets, but when I was in New York, he was in New York, he was with the Giants, and we got a chance to hang out a lot. And Antonio Pierce is a guy, he's from LA, but well, he's from Long Beach, but he's by way LA, that whole energy he embodies, the late 70s and 80s. If you're not a Giants, he's not rocking with you. He didn't rock with many Jets guys. I just happened to be his friend before that, man. So I got a chance to hang out with him a lot, especially those Monday night parties. But loyal to his teammates, man. Like once you're a brother, once you're part of the G-Men, which now, once you're a part of those Las Vegas Raiders, you're one of his brothers. He grew up a Raiders fan, so he really embodies what the Raiders mean. But as a teammate, he's a guy that's everything that he's yelling at you to do, he's gonna do himself. He's not gonna ask anything of you that he's not doing himself. He's gonna be honest. He's gonna be brutally honest. But he's going to get the best work out of himself. And I think also he's going to get the best work out of his teammates and inadvertently now get the best work out of his players. So I'm glad to see him get an opportunity. And I'm glad the players have responded to him as a coach. And I want to see him kind of go the distance. I know you're going to ask about this, but we kind of talked about it when you were on the show. I said, I remember the Rich Bisaccia situation. And I remember how the players responded to him. And then that wasn't the move that they made that next coming season. And I think you saw a lot of resentment and a lot of pullback from the players. I think this is another opportunity for the Raiders to look at that and say, hey, look now, you got a guy they're responding to, a guy that's young, gets the post. I think what I saw in him in the Giants, it's the same guy he is as a coach with the Las Vegas Raiders. So I'm hoping that at the end of this, they find a way to give him that gig.
I agree with you. I want you to know right up front, I'm rooting for him. I want him to get it. The players want him to get it. It's a different team. They're playing hard. They've had to throw a lot of the offense out because they didn't have the personnel to do it, and Josh McDaniels still wanted to do it. And the rookie quarterback wasn't able to. And the job that he has done, and I want to go back because I think he gets an unfair blemish. And I want to ask you if you think I'm fair. And the reason I want to ask this, ladies and gentlemen, to Braylon is because we're good enough friends that he knows he can disagree with me, and I don't. And I defer to him.
100%.
But everybody talks and calls him a player's coach, and he is. But I don't like a player's coach, and I don't like an authoritarian. I think you have to be both. And I think he sent a message when on television against the Chief, he benches Marcus Peters, gets in his face, and oh, by the way, the next day cuts him. I think he sent a message. Now, let me tell you something. There was no love lost in that locker room. And Braylon, you've been the guy in the locker room everybody loved, and you know what it's like when there's a player that when everyone wants him to go, we're going to leave it right there. I think he sent a message to the nation. I don't think it's why he did it.
Yeah.
I'm more than a player's coach. Don't call me that. I'm a leader.
Yeah, 100%. I think in this particular situation, the two things just happen to align at the same time. you get a lot of guys and they get the misconception that a player's coach is someone that's cool with the players, got the players' number, may hang out with the players, maybe like Jared Goff and his wife, Kelly, and Josh McVay and his wife, and how they all hang out, and that makes the players coach, and they're cool with you slacking off or late to meetings and things like that. The players coach, he's cool. He's a players coach. He's one of the guys. That's BS. That's 100% BS. When we say players coach is a guy that I can talk to, a guy that's approachable, a guy that's going to tell me straight, a guy that if I tell him, hey, I disagree with that, he's going to listen to me. He's going to take it under advisement, literally take it under advisement. He's not going to be too high up to where there's a pecking order of people that I got to go talk to eventually get an information or a message to him. He's a guy that's not going to just continue to do it his way, some book, some textbook of plays that he got and said, this is the way in which you run it. It doesn't work like that, Josh McDaniels. He's also a guy that's going to be able to call guys out that have Pro Bowls, that have championships, that have that cachet. If they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, he's going to call you out. And you saw that case with Marcus Peters. So what I love about Antonio Pierce is he wasn't doing it just to do it to send a message. One, it needed to be done. Two, it was the right thing to be done. But three, also, I'm gonna show you that I'm not afraid to pull that trigger if this is the right move. It's not me coming in and letting me do something drastic to get everybody to, oh, he's the big guy. He's the head man on campus, the big man in charge. No, this is what needed to be done, and I wasn't afraid to do it. That's what a player's coach is.
Totally agree with you. All right, I'm going to ask you something about AP because I'm rooting for him to get the job. I want him to get it. You know this. I, more than being a fan, and I'm not a fan of pro football because I have friends that play on every team or coach or management. So I just root for good people. But you can't talk about good people and not talk about AP. I think that's missed when he comes in as a topic of conversation. People know the Warrior player. They know that he's tough, but I don't think there's enough talk about this is a good man. This is a good human being that you want leading your franchise. You know him well. Do you disagree with me?
I don't disagree with you all. And AP is a guy that, yes, he's the warrior on the field, and he's the guy that's going to yell at his teammates. He's going to get in your face. He's going to get you to where you need to be, and he's going to ask you to get him to where he needs to be. He's going to do that with his players. But another thing about coaching, and I learned this through Lloyd, is you got to know the pulse of all the players on your team. It sucks, but hey, you're a head coach. That's your job. You got to know the players that might need that hug. You got to know the players that might need a little one-on-one situation where you talk. You got to know the players that need you to get on their ass in the midst of everybody else so that they can say, okay, cool, I'm good. You got to know the players that don't like that. You got to know the players that, hey, coach, can you kind of talk to me over here? You got to know the players that when they go into that quiet space, no. Let me get them out of that quiet space. You got to know the players that when they're riding too high, let me bring you back down. And I think that's what he's going to be really good at. He's going to be really good at being in tune with his players. The ones that have success at the highest level, and in this case, we're talking about Super Bowls, those coaches, they know the pulse of their players. You can't tell me Andy Reid doesn't know the pulse of his Kansas City Chiefs. You can't tell me Nick Sirianni doesn't know the pulse of the Philadelphia Eagles, Kyle Shanahan with the 49ers, Dan Campbell with the Detroit Lions. You can't tell me. Those guys know the pulse of their players, and I think that's where he's going to excel at, and I think that's what you get, especially in this day and age. It's a different day and age. It's not like back in the day, even when I played, or the 90s, the 80s, and 70s, where everybody kind of just fit on the team. Coaches have to coach the individual player in this day and age.
It's the old adage: if people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. It's not just football; it's everything. All right, I want to ask you a question because obviously you're there in Detroit. You're from Detroit, and you have a great show on Woodward Sports. Ryan Romani, I love it. I love being on your show. But Dan Campbell has done something that I don't know if people outside Detroit, I know you realize it, but you're an NFL guy. I don't think people in Detroit realize he has opened the eyes of the National Football League to players. And there's been for a long time that, oh, you played, you probably can't be a coach. I think that's been missed. We've missed a lot of great guys who could be coaches because of that. Dan Campbell has opened the eyes. He's a disciplinarian, but he's a player's coach. He's done so well in Detroit. And I think the only difference really between him and AP is melanoma in the skin. I mean,
You ain't
that's
lying.
it. They're the same guy. Your
You
thoughts
ain't
on
lying.
that? Because you know both men.
You're absolutely correct. And AP is light skinned, so he's close to Dan. He's close to Dan's color anyway. But looking at it from this standpoint is, I think in Detroit, it's always been a quick fix. It's always been, let's have a big player or a big player too, and let's just kind of keep bringing in a Dre Bly or keep bringing in insert free agent that you're going to pay like Reggie Bush, or bringing in these players, and we're going to get it to work. It's going to make sense. Or you bring this coach in or that coach. I use the metaphor this, Hondo. People that aren't from here, they don't know what potholes are, but I'll tell you, potholes are the road. You get these huge cracks in the ground, basically because of the heating and the freezing of the ground. If you go 6 feet down, that is how you properly repair a pothole. If you go 6 feet down, Hondo, you probably won't have to repair that pothole for 3 to 4 years. But in Michigan, they go 3 feet down, and you got to replace it every year. Dan Campbell built the Detroit Lions with Brad Holmes 6 feet down starting 3 years ago. They said, we got to strip this thing down to the bolts. Sheila, we need you to be involved. We need your opinion. We need to see you. We want you to be the face. Thank you for bringing us in here. Trust us. We trust you. Got to get players that want to be in Detroit. Got to get players that want to play for the team. Got to get players that want to be on the team. They've built it through the draft. They've stuck to their guns. It took them some while. Hey, 2021 was an ugly year. 2022 start off as an ugly year, 0-6. They finished 8-2. But now you're seeing the Detroit Lions. That's a foundation that's firm. You got a belief. You're built through the offensive line. You got a running game. You got a quarterback that's been to a Super Bowl. You gave him some confidence since he left Los Angeles in that horrible way, kind of in the middle of the night with Josh McVay, which is one of his biggest regrets. So he said, they built the foundation. Dan took the time, but it started with Sheila Ham. She said, look, I want to hire my coach first, 6-year contract. We know it's going to take a second. Then hire Brad Holmes. And then the first thing that they said at the podium, listen, it's going to take 3 years. Most people aren't honest with you like that. Yeah, we can do it this year. We're going to win this year. We're going to win this year, and next year we'll be in the Super Bowl. BS. It's hard to turn around like that. They were honest. They did it the right way, and now you're seeing, hell, you bring that up and how they're doing lately. Just found out that the Broncos and the Lions just got flexed to an 8:15 night game that Sunday that they play. It was going to be an early morning game. Now it's a night game because people want to see Dan Campbell and they want to see this Detroit Lions team. He's built it the right way.
I think that's week 15, by the way, too.
It is.
Which
They play
all right. So
Broncos, Vikings, Dallas, and Vikings.
all right. So let me just say this to you. There are no potholes in Vegas, baby.
Oh, I know. I know. I definitely know. But
You
they
got to
are
get out
out
here
here
and
and
stay
they
with
will
me.
tear your car up.
All right. Yeah, they will. All right. I want to talk about Jim Harbaugh for a minute. Now, I want to make it clear. I want AP to get the job. I don't hate Jim Harbaugh. People say, well, you
Okay.
probably hate him because you're a Spartan. No, you know this personally when we've talked privately.
No.
I got so much respect for Jim. I think he's a great football coach. Anybody that says he isn't, I mean,
They're lying.
I don't want to hear about the sign stuff. The point of the matter is he's a great football coach. There's no way I have no issues with him. Get along great with him. But I want AP to get the job. But that being said, there is talk within the building that if AP doesn't, John is on a list. I don't think he's the front runner. I think the Bears or Carolina will get him before the Raiders, but that's another story. But he is on the list, and it's not me talking about it. It's people around the situation talking to me as a reporter. I don't make the news, I report it. But I tell people this. He's a Michigan man, you're a Michigan man. But you played for him.
Yeah.
And I have other friends who I've told you who that played for him in San Francisco who told me, great coach, unquestionable great coach. They did not like playing for him. He wore everybody out. And not because he's a terrible human. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
He wore people out. He wears out his welcome when he goes places. And I'm asking you, I believe he's different at Michigan. But is that fair reporting? You played for him. Am I being fair?
So I did play for him in 2011, and what I would say, you're absolutely being fair. With that being said, Jim Harbaugh is an individual. Wherever he goes, he's going to turn that program around. You can go from San Diego, you can go to Stanford, you can go to 49ers, you can go to Michigan. So that makes him a great football coach. Hell, he's been to, 2 playoffs. He's been to the Super Bowl. So he's a damn good football coach. You cannot take that from him. He was definitely uh, he was a lot to handle, pause in San Fran. There were many 10 o'clock nights during training camp, which is unheard of. Like many 10 o'clock nights. He slept at the facility, many early meetings. Like guys had to practice hurt a lot of, well, not hurt necessarily, but there was no breaks or no relief. And I think a lot of guys didn't want special treatment, that they wanted those times through the year where you're like, you understand where the players are. They're a little beat down. Let's tone it down this week, or let's taper off here, or you know what? I think these guys have had a really good training camp so far this week. Let's give them a night off and make it a movie night. Like everything with him was old school. Bo Schembechler, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. It's time for meetings. It's time for football. What else is going on in your life? Like it's not about your wives. It's not about your kids. You signed up for this, and I understand that to a certain extent. But I think he was trying to find that balance in San Fran. Now here's what I think about Jim Harbaugh. Now, from the time he got to Michigan to who he is now, you've seen a difference in Jim Harbaugh. A lot of the players early on in his first 5, 6 years didn't feel like the doors were open for them to just come in. They didn't feel like they could just have conversations or add input or disagree with things or say, Coach, I'm this, or Coach, I'm that. A lot of that was just bringing a lot of older guys in from the NFL too, not coaches that understood the younger players, kind of had a pulse on what's going on now. Can't necessarily coach like you coach in the NFL. You got to work with these kids. You got to develop these kids, which means you got to be around these kids, talk to these kids. If you look at Jim now, after those 2 abysmal years of losing Ohio State, well, 18 years, but those 2 in particular, 2019 or 2018, 2019 to now, you hire Ron Bellamy, you hire Josh Gaddis, you hire Sharon Moore, you hire Mike Hart. Shout out to my brother Mike Hart. The door is open. Look at how the players now talk about Jim Harbaugh. Look at Sharon Moore crying after the Penn State game. I didn't agree with the crying, but I understood the sentiment. Look at Blake Corum. Look at JJ. They love Jim Harbaugh. Like, look at him after meetings. He's always giving the microphone to them. He's giving the shine to them. Excuse me. He's made it about the kids. He's made it about the program. He's actually brought kids into him. My nephew's on the team right now, Hondo, Micah Pollard, number 4. Micah said, I went to Michigan for Jim Harbaugh. Like I was talking to Mike on Thanksgiving. I said, how you feel about Jim Harbaugh? Just kind of everything is going, man, I love Coach. Like I love Coach. They talk differently about him now. If you ask players that were on that 16, the spot game against JT Barrett in Ohio State, very different than the players that you were asked that have won these last 3. So I think he's now in a space. He will be a damn good coach in the NFL now, and I think the players wouldn't have to deal with what Patrick Willis and myself and Justin Smith and insert player here. They won a lot of games. They went to Super Bowls, but it just took a toll on a lot of those players. I think now Harbaugh is ready to come back to the NFL and could have success at the highest point if he got with the right situation, right squad. And keep in mind, Harbaugh and I bump heads. So it's no secret that Harbaugh and I bump heads. So this is coming from a person that's non-biased about Harbaugh. He has earned my respect in the last 3 years as it relates to how he's opened up the players, how he's changed, dealt with this situation. He's a troll. I love it. He reminds me of myself. But I respect what he's done in these last 3 years. It takes a strong individual to be able to come off of who you've been for 50 plus years to change. People don't change like that late in life, Hondo, so you got to give them a lot of credit.
I agree. All right, I want to ask you about the Raiders, because I always just thought you were a quintessential Raider type guy.
Yeah.
You were scrappy.
Wearing black and gray, silver and gray.
Well, I mean, I'll give you an example. I mean, you had all the gifts that only God can give.
Yeah.
But you also know there are some guys that don't have any of the God-given gifts, but they got all the heart. Then there are guys with all the God-given gifts and no heart.
Yeah.
You were one of those rare guys that superstar. Nobody faster, nobody could catch better. I mean, I watched Michigan State triple team you, and you went up and somehow contorted your body and I remember I was standing 8 feet from it. And I'm like, man,
Yeah.
that guy's good.
It's
But
the
yet
time.
you worked like I don't have any talent. Now I think that comes from your parents. You know, you weren't. Jim Harbaugh talks about being born on third base and think you hit a triple.
Yeah.
You were born on third base, but acted like you were at home plate batting to get on base. Those things made you a Raider blue collar lunch pail guy.
I
What
always
was your impression of the Raiders when you played?
I love the silver and black. Like the silver and black, like growing up, you're talking about Bo Jackson, Marcus Allen, like Willie Galt, if you want to go back that far in terms of wide receivers and the speed, but just the attitude, the physicality, the how long and you move into the 90s, like the physicality of that. When Charles Woodson went there in 98, I think he brought some of that silver and black back. Hell, he got to the Super Bowl with Jerry Rice and Rich Gannon, who won MVP that year. But I love the Raiders and I appreciate that. My parents are who I have to attribute that to because my dad was one of the best athletes Detroit City had ever seen. And he worked,
Ever.
no, like ever. Like got
People
drafted
don't
by,
understand.
my dad got drafted.
How good your dad was.
So my dad got drafted by the Baltimore Orioles out of high school. He got drafted by the Orioles. He went to Michigan. He was a starting running back. And then they bumped him for Butch. But then he and Butch shared the backfield. Butch Wolfo, who went first round to the Giants.
Yep.
They 1,000 yards. So I saw him have to work that hard. And my mom had the heart. Like my mom would always just, hey man, like, you just focus at that heart and just let that be you. Like you have to find who you are. And then always, what's your why? Like always remembering what's your why. But going to the Raiders, when I played against the Raiders, like I missed the Woodson Super Bowl year because I was still in college. So when I got drafted, it was kind of like it was the Randy Moss, Warren Sapp, Richard Seymour, and they were just kind of putzing along. But that energy was still there from the fans. Like the black hole was still. You didn't want to go to black hole. You get hit in the head with a battery. Trust me, I know because I didn't believe it. I had my helmet off and did get hit in the head. Uh, but you still had players they just couldn't put it together. I mean, you had Nnamdi Asomugha, who was amazing for his time at the Raiders. You had was Route, Stanford Route was pretty good. Fabian Washington. Like you had speed. Now you had a lot of guys that could play. It just didn't get put together. But that attitude on defense was still there. I mean, Warren Sapp was still fighting players. Richard Seymour still sacking quarterbacks. Attitude was there, but you couldn't put it together when I got in the league. It took a while.
Braylon, the Raiders are going to be probably looking for a quarterback at some point in the draft next year. Tell me what you think of JJ McCarthy. Do you think he's a quality NFL quarterback?
I do. And I think here's why. You can look at the stats and you can get confused because of how they pass in the Pac-12 with Penix and Williams or Bo Nix, or you can look at the quarterbacks from Ohio State over the years, or you can look at insert spot here. JJ's numbers aren't going to wow you in that regard. JJ is a leader. JJ is confident being a leader. JJ has measurables that I don't think you get a chance to really see until Indy. He's going to be over 6'3". He's probably 6'3.5", 6'4". He's going to run 4'4" mid to 4'4" low. Like he's strong. He's intelligent. He can grasp the playbook. He can play. Like you're talking about a guy that hasn't lost a game in the regular season in the last 20, what are we at now? 25 games? Like, so guy hasn't lost. And he's all about the team. He's not a guy that's coming in here and trying to be, and I'm not pointing at anybody else, but he's not coming in here like, oh, this is the JJ McCarthy show and this is that. He's the guy that wants to win first and foremost. And I think that's what a quarterback has to do. Also, he's a guy that still is like he's open. Like he's still wet behind the ears a little bit. So you can get him into a system, man, and let him really dive into a system, make something his own. I don't think he's really had a chance to show how good he can be as a quarterback because it hasn't been asked of him. When you got a guy scoring 22 rushing touchdowns and Blake Corum, And then you got another guy scoring 21 in Hassan Haskins. You got Donovan Edwards. 2 years in a row, you won the Joe Moore Award, which is the best offensive line in college football. What are you going to do? Not to mention, everybody knows Jim Harbaugh likes to run the ball. So I don't think he hasn't got a chance to show how good he is at the quarterback position. So I definitely think I know he's going to be a good talent in the NFL. Right place, right situation. But he's a first-round talent in my estimation. I believe that seriously.
All right, I'm going to get into one other subject with you, then I'm going to let you go, but I think it's an important one. If AP continues to lead this team the way he is, and they get to 8 or 9 wins, 9 is what I predicted, but if they get to 8 or 9, I have said there is going to be a mutiny in that locker room if they don't keep him. Now, there was a lot of angry people when they didn't keep Rich Bisaccia.
Including me.
Yep. And then along comes AP and okay, maybe the owner learned.
Yeah.
You've been in those locker rooms. You were a glue guy in the locker room. I've never heard an ill word about you from anybody that was in a locker room with you. And so my question is, take fans inside a locker room and the dynamic, how important that coach is. Because when I say there's going to be a mutiny, people ask me, what are you talking about? It's your boss. Who cares? They don't understand the amount of time NFL players spend together, considerably more than their own family during the season, and the impact. Can you please take fans in the locker room and explain that and why there would be a mutiny?
Yeah, I'll take you 4 coaches back. This is what the Las Vegas Raiders have been dealing with since 4 coaches ago. John Gruden, he's out. You bring in Rich Bisaccia. Everything that happened that year with John Gruden, and it was a lot. We don't have to get into that, but it was a lot. It took a toll on that team, and that's why I was pissed about the Derek Carr situation, Josh McDaniels, because I can't believe you would allow somebody to really stand up there for that team. At another story, but you had that go on. You had Henry Ruggs. The emotion in that locker room when Rich Bisaccia takes over, it's just, I can only imagine. These guys are like, man, it's the same old stuff. Here it is. Now I don't want to be here. Man, I'm just playing to get to the end of the season. And Rich Bisaccia gets them to the playoffs. So now you have the highs, the lows, the highs of the playoff, Rich Bisaccia. Now you're like, look, we got a guy in Rich Bisaccia we can rally around. Like, maybe this isn't. We got boom. And then they don't bring him back. And then they bring a guy in Josh McDaniels, who another Patriots guy, do it the Patriots way. That Patriots way only exists when Tom Brady's on the team. Let's just call it what it is. So then you have that. Josh McDaniels comes here. Nobody wants to play for Josh. Cats are like, why did I even come here? Talking about number 17. Like, why? Which is a good question. Why did I even come here? Josh Jacobs like, does this guy realize that I led the league in rushing last year? Now I can't get the ball. So now you got guys that are jumping off the bandwagon and want to leave. Josh McDaniels gets removed. Now you bring in AP. Instantly, always watch your stars. Look at Devontae Adams' energy from 1 week to the next. Look at Max Crosby smoking cigars after the win in the locker room. Look at Josh Jacobs. Look at the team coming together. You're like, yo, y'all don't know what this is, but this is something. Like, this is what we have. To get these guys' energy from where they were, the Monday night game against the Lions, I was here. To go from that to where they are now, if you were to take AP from them, I guarantee you that locker room has been through too much in the last 3 years. You'll never get them back, and you'll become one of these teams that's just flailing in the wind. Like, you'll never get it right. You'll never get it right. So AP, if he gets to 8-9, if he gets to 9-8, if something like that happens, do yourself a favor. Mr. Davis, do yourself a favor. I'm calling you Mr. Davis. Do yourself a favor. Keep AP, because the locker room is vibing with him. The energy is good in the locker room. People want to come to the practice facility. When you're not winning and the energy isn't good, you don't want to go to the practice facility. You don't want to be around the colors that you wear. You don't want, and then you damn sure don't want to go into games because you don't want to get embarrassed yet again in the NFL, professional football. You're looking for the Cancun trip first week of January. That's what you're looking for. Right now, these guys aren't looking for the Cancun trip. They're looking for ways to get better. They're looking for ways to play together. So that's the locker room that they have now. They don't bring AP back and they bring in somebody. Hell, let's say it's Jim Harbaugh. Everybody, we don't know Jim Harbaugh, but we know AP. So that's what you run the risk of in this situation. If you get 8 and 9 and then you don't bring him back, like you didn't bring back Rich Pisaccia, which is still a big, big blunder in my opinion. So gotta keep him because of energy. Energy is all we have, man.
I agree. All right, one last question, if you don't mind, but it's one I've been sharing, and I'd love your input as a player. I think if they decide to go with AP, here's how they do it. They go to AP and say, we're going to give you a 3-year deal at $4 million a year.
Yep. And earn it.
But we're going to keep Champ Kelly as the GM. He's going to be your boss. But anytime within those 3 years, and it's fully guaranteed, you're going to get the whole 3 years. If at any time in those 3 years you get this team to the playoffs, it automatically extends 5 years. So if you get them there in year one, you have 2 years left. It's now a 7-year deal. We're going to raise you to $10 million, which is what they paid Josh and Gruden, who didn't get them to the playoffs. That's only fair. And we go back retroactively and pay you $10 million for the time that you're only getting 4. I think that's fair. It allows the Raiders owner to say, listen, you don't have head coaching experience. I'm willing to give you the shot. Are you willing to bet on yourself? And you and I both know AP. He taking that deal.
Oh, he's definitely gonna take that deal. I don't know a man that wouldn't take that deal because at the end of the day, I think it's a fair deal all the way around. You look at Mr. Davis, like, hey, look, I didn't just spend money on John. Now I've spent money on Josh McDaniels. Look, we've spent a lot of money on coaches. You weren't necessarily on the radar. You kind of fell into the job, but I like you. The team likes you. 100%. This is what we're thinking. And if you become the coach that we believe you can, that the team definitely believes you can, handle everything you just said, sign me up for it. Because I think at the end of the day, you still have to prove yourself. Like you still have to prove yourself. Like you gotta 4 million is a good 4 million, but he's the head coach of the team that he grew up idolizing, the team that he wanted to be a part of. So 4 million and that promise, that win, because he's gonna do it. When I get this team to the playoffs, I get to get retroactive and a 5-year extension. I think it's a fair deal all the way around. Everybody wins. Like I don't see a way you lose in that deal because you get an opportunity to be the head coach. You get a chance to make more money. Get a chance to get some film. You get a resume out there. So if it doesn't work there, maybe. And then Mark, you get a chance to get off the hook and not have to pay another guy $10 million or $100 million deal. So I think it's a fair deal for both parties.
Now, listen, this is what I hope. I hope Champ Kelly and AP keep their jobs. Jim Harbaugh goes to Chicago.
Yeah.
Or goes to Carolina. I don't care where.
Right.
And it's not that I don't want him in Vegas. I want AP to get the job. And I want him out of Michigan. Because now that my Spartans got Jonathan Smith, I want him to have a chance. And we all know Harbaugh's building a dynasty.
Man, he's built it. I mean, he's built it in terms of a Big Ten dynasty. I mean, 3 in a row. Right. They've lost 1 game in 3 years in the Big Ten, well, and counting because obviously the game hasn't happened yet. It's Saturday. But yeah, he's built the dynasty. But check this out. Jonathan Smith, I guarantee you his first move as Michigan State coach is he's gonna bring in Dante Moore out of UCLA. Mark my words. Dante Moore, the quarterback from UCLA. Like he's already a transfer portal. He's from Detroit. Detroit King High School, the high school I went to, makes sense to get him in Michigan State, get this thing rocking and rolling.
Yeah, and I think he's going to bring his quarterback also from Oregon State too, and he's a good one.
The backup,
listen,
he's a pretty good quarterback. Yeah, Uiagalelei is going in the draft, but the backup quarterback's coming.
Correct. Listen, Braylon, I love you. You know that.
I love you too,
I love
brother.
the
Always.
man that you are. I'm so proud of you. Please tell your dad hello. Give your mom a big hug from me. She knows I love her, but just give her a hug. And I just want to say this. My Aunt Monica is the biggest Michigan fan I know.
Okay.
And when she found out that you were my friend, I mean, she went
Aunt Monica. What's up, Aunt Monica?
She went from like, oh, my niece is marrying him to, oh, you know, Braylon Edwards. So I want you to know you are one of those guys that I wish everyone knew the man.
I appreciate that.
I just, you know this, Hondo Carpenter loves you. We're friends. If I could ever do anything for you, I would do it in a heartbeat. You could just say, I don't even have to ask Hondo, he'll do it. And that's what friendship is. And I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, I love to watch good people prosper, and you're one of them. I'm proud of you, buddy.
I don't know, man. I love you and I really value and appreciate our friendship and relationship, buddy.
He is one of the good guys, one of the best college football wide receivers to ever play the game of football. I watched Charles Rogers. I watched Kirk Gibson. I've seen all the great ones. And let me tell you, there's a ton of them. And they all deserve the respect. So does he. Don't ever not put him in the conversation. The greatest player in the history of the University of Michigan and one of the top 3 in the history of the Big Ten, the one and only, the great Braylon Edwards, will be back.